Welcome back to my TradeBot series, where we try to code our way out of bad financial decisions. Last time, we built a TradeBot template called TradeBot Beta. We saw how Flask JavaScript and Docker could come together to create a slightly underwhelming pixel character who does not really do much yet. But look at him, that adorable little bot, such a good boy just sitting there doing absolutely nothing. Now it is time to give our bot a tiny spark of intelligence. To do that, I want to connect it to a trading API. And because I'm not limited, let's connect multiple trade APIs. But before diving into the chaotic jungle of finance tools, I set a few basic criteria. First, it has to be open source. I want to see what is going on under the hood. Transparency matters. Second, it has to be free to use. This is a no-budget, curiosity-driven project. No paywalls and no subscriptions. Third, it needs to be easy to integrate. A clean, well-documented REST API is a must. I am here to build, not spend my day wrestling with software development kits. And wow, there are a lot of trading APIs out there. So many options, so many promises, so many logos I have never seen before in my life. I had no idea there were this many. I thought there would be maybe 10, maybe 12 on a generous day, but no. Apparently, every startup on Earth has launched an API. Some of these look legitimate. Some look like they were built in a weekend. You have got REST APIs, GraphQL APIs, WebSocket APIs, free APIs, is sort of free APIs, and those classic free until you actually use it APIs. Eventually, after far too much scrolling, I picked 3 trade APIs. Why 3? Because that is how many I could tolerate before losing interest. First up, Yahoo Finance. What does it offer? Stock prices, historical data, financials, and a bunch of other information you may or may not ever use, but it is nice to have. Next is Alpha Vantage. It sounds impressive, like something a hedge fund intern named during a caffeine binge. It gives you real-time prices, historical data, and a bunch of technical indicators for people who enjoy lines, curves, and charts. Last up is Finnhub. It offers real-time prices, market news, earnings reports, and more. It uses a simple REST API with key-based access, which means no weird setup and no unnecessary software development kit drama. Time to stop comparing APIs and actually do something. Out of the 3, I am starting with the easiest one, yfinance. So what are we doing here? I want to explore what yfinance can actually do. We are going to poke around, pull some data, and see what kind of information it can give us. To keep things tidy, I created a small module called yfinance_example.py. Inside that file, I added functions to fetch current prices, historical data, dividend history, financial, statements, and even analyst recommendations. Each function is basically a probe. It helps me understand how yfinance works and what kind of output I can expect. For example, I can grab the current market price of a stock with one line and pull historical data with another. We can even inspect financial statements. Yes, this API can give you balance sheets and income reports too. And just to be clear, this is not production code. This is exploration code. Fast, messy, useful. Once I know what I actually need, then I can start building something cleaner around it. Collecting data from trading APIs is only step 1. We also need to analyze it and estimate stock sentiment. For this, we can use tools like TextBlob and Vader, and we can score headlines for tone and emotion, giving the bot a quick read on market moves. For now, this part is all about learning what is possible, one API at a time. So I created a new file called yfinance_sentiment.py to explore market sentiment. Sentiment in this case is basically how people feel about a stock. Good, bad, or completely confused. The script pulls recent news from Yahoo Finance, then runs each headline through 2 sentiment tools, Text, Blob, and Vader. TextBlob is simple and gives a polarity score from negative to positive. It is basically a mood meter. Vader is a bit more tuned for short text like headlines and gives a compound score based on emotion and tone. Using both lets me compare results and spot stronger signals. It is not magic, but it is a solid starting point. Here is a quick example of how TextBlob and Vader score a real Apple headline. TextBlob gives a polarity score that tells us whether the wording leans negative, neutral, or positive. Vader goes a little deeper with a compound score that tries to capture the overall emotional tone. They will not always agree, and that is kind of the point. We are comparing 2 different interpretations of the same headline to help the bot think a little more like a cautious trader. So after building the yfinance example and sentiment modules, I now have to do the same repetitive work for Alpha Vantage and Finnhub. That means exploring what data they provide, testing how stable they are, and figuring out how to pull similar information like price news and sentiment. It is not the most exciting part of the build, but it is necessary. So with that in mind, let us talk about Alpha Vantage. Alpha Vantage feels more like a raw data dump than yfinance. Everything is pulled through URLs with function names, and you have to handle the JSON yourself. It gives decent price data earnings and company information, but there are no built-in objects like you get with yfinance. The sentiment side is also more basic. You mostly get article titles and summaries. Finally, there is Finnhub. Finnhub feels cleaner and more modern than Alpha Vantage. The API is well structured and the data comes back fast. It gives real-time prices, analyst ratings, financials, and news headlines. There is no fancy Python wrapper though, so like Alpha Vantage, you are working directly with raw JSON. Something I should mention, Finnhub is not open source, but the free tier being generous means it makes it on the list. So, after reviewing all three APIs, Yahoo Finance, Alpha Vantage, and Finnhub, and experimenting with prices, news, and sentiment using Text Blob and Vader, I have a much better sense of what each one can do. I built test scripts, pulled data, and now it is time to turn all of that into something actually useful, a clean, basic, reusable trade API module. If you have made it this far, first of all, respect. Second, hang in there a little longer while we montage our way through writing basically the same code all over again. And we are back. I hope you enjoyed that coding montage. There is nothing quite like watching nearly identical functions fly past at high speed to remind you that a surprising amount of programming is really just structured repetition. I wrapped everything into one unified trade module that can talk to all three APIs through a single clean function, which means no more copying and pasting the same logic across multiple files. So here we are, iteration 2 of TradeBot Beta. You will notice a few small UI upgrades right away. We now have a text box, a check button, and for the first time, we can actually ask the bot about a stock instead of just watching it exist. For testing, I've been using Apple, ticker AAPL. If we enter AAPL, the bot pulls data from all of the trading APIs and returns a bullish confidence score. And as a fun little bonus, I made the bot draggable, which means you can move it anywhere on the screen for no practical reason other than the fact that it makes me happy. Type in any ticker, hit check, and the bot will tell you whether it is feeling bullish or bearish. And with that, we wrap up episode 2. We explored 3 trading APIs, built sentiment tools, created a unified trade module, and plugged everything into our upgraded bot. It is finally starting to feel real. Having a bot that can assess and reassess stocks is essential to its success, and in this episode, we proved that it is possible even without AI. With that, I want to say thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again in episode 3, where we take this bot one step closer to making actual trades.